Hi everyone, good morning. I am Therese Lacascurio, but you can call me Cha, and I am a BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage, and Arts Management Program student in the University of the Philippines, Manila, and I am your host for today. So I would just like to thank everyone for being here, and of course, welcome all of you to the opening program for this year's Flores de Mayo sa Faura Festival, a conference with the theme celebrating 500 years of heritage of local flora. Now on its third year, the conference and festival organized by the Faura Project Incorporated, an organization formed by alumni, faculty, current students, and friends of the UP Manila, bound by a common cause, which is to revive, revitalize, and sustain the rich cultural and historical heritage of Ermita, particularly Faura Street and its environs. So before we start, we have a special video prepared for all of you today. So go ahead, Elijah. Okay, thank you so much, Elijah. So that was a very exciting video, and that summarizes what we have prepared for you guys today. So yes, be excited, everyone. So now we officially begin today, the first day of our long-awaited festival. And of course, we at the Faura Project prepared a very special lineup of exciting events for all of you today. So for the house rules, we would just like to request all the participants here today to mute their microphones unless asked otherwise. So later, there will be Q&A portions after a speaker segment. So if you have any questions, you can just list them down first and ask them later during the Q&A portions. So before we start, I would just like to have a quick vibe check with everyone here in the Zoom room. So how are you feeling? Send one word to the Zoom chat to describe how you're feeling right now. So maybe you're feeling a bit hungry because you haven't had breakfast yet, or you're feeling a bit sleepy because it's so early in the morning, or you're just feeling excited to be here today. So send one word to the Zoom chat right now that describes how you're feeling. Yes, I would love to see some answers in the Zoom room. Okay, so someone answered excited. How about others? Oh, and someone privately messaged me, very excited. Yes, I love the energy. Oh, someone messaged me again, a bit hungry. Okay, I relate to that. Okay, thank you, thank you. So I won't keep you guys any longer. To give our welcome address is the convener and curator of our Flores de Mayo festivals and the brainchild behind the Faura Project. Let's hear from Dr. Akanzar Lago.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, do you see me, Cha?
Yes, Pop.
Okay, great. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Carmencita Padilla, Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Manila, Dean Leonardo Estacio, Professor Alice Adeva, representatives from the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, esteemed speakers, participants or participating artists for our about to be launched painting exhibit, and guests. So welcome to the third Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Let me just share with you my slide. Okay. Slideshow. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so since 2018, we have been conducting our festivals to showcase local flora that proliferate in the month of May, and to use this as a platform to celebrate heritage, help revive traditions and festivities. You would have already noticed that our colors this year are inspired by the colors used by the National Quincentennial Commission. For indeed, this year's event has been conceived to co-celebrate the quincentenary. Thus, our theme, celebrating 500 years of heritage with local flora. So thank you for joining us today in this opening program, and we hope to still see you not in the other activities which we have in store for the whole week. Okay, so that's it. So once again, thank you. We go to you, chat. Up share. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Labor. So now, as I mentioned a while ago, we have a great lineup of speakers for our opening program today. So to introduce our first guest of honor, I'd like to call Professor Bonilla, an assistant professor of BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chancellor. Good morning, Dean, and to all our guests and friends. Now, to welcome us in this in this week-long activities of Faura Project, we have with us none other than our Dean, Dean Leonardo Estacio Jr. He is professor at the Department of Behavioral Sciences at the University of the Philippines, Manila. He teaches anthropology, behavioral sciences, and health policy courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels. He completed his PhD in anthropology at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and his master's in public health at Johns Hopkins University in the US. He has been a visiting scientist at the University of Washington and was recipient of US government's Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship Program. Apart from being awarded as outstanding teacher by his college, he has also been recipient of the UP Manila Chancellor's Award for exemplary extension work. His current research interests include studies on drug abuse and behavioral health among young populations, social health insurance benefit packages, community-managed health programs, delivery of health services to geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, violence against children, children online, and sexual exploitation of children online, among others. So here he is, our very own Dean Estacio, for his opening remarks. Dean, take it away.
Thank you, Professor Bonilla, for that very generous introduction. Chancellor Padilla, university officials present, esteemed guest speakers, fellow faculty members of the College of Arts and Sciences, staff and students, a pleasant morning to all of you. To all mothers who are present today, including our dear mother, Chancellor Menchie Padilla, a belated Happy Mother's Day po. Today is the start of the two-day conference of the third year of the Flores de Mayo sa Faura Festival, organized and hosted by the Faura Project, Incorporated, led by Professor Hani Libertine Alcanzar Labor. Upfront, I would like to thank, salute, and congratulate Dr. Labor and her team for their passion and, of course, commitment in organizing and hosting this very relevant and timely two-day conference. Lest I forget, on behalf of the College of Arts and Sciences, I also would like to express my sincerest gratitude to our invited guest of speakers today for generously accepting the invitation to be our guest speakers and of course to share to us their experiences and expertise in the arts and science of flowers. Firstly, I would like to thank Ma'am Bing Famoso, founder of the Philippine Botanical Artists Society. She will speak to us later on Philippine Botanical Art Society and advocacy for native flowers. Dr. Mercedes Planta, our colleague from UP Diliman, a history professor, who will share with us something on flowers for women in the 16th and 17th century. And finally, Sir John Ray Callado, a botanist from National Museum, who will share with us something on botanical illustrations of flowers then and now. The theme, celebrating 500 years of heritage with local flowers, on this two-day conference on the third year of the Flores de Mayo Sakali Faura Festival, is most fitting and very relevant, and it's very much aligned with our quincentennial commemoration of the 500 years colonizers and now our friends. In UP Manila, through the leadership of our Chancellor, Menchie Padilla, we have organized our own Filipino-centric version of the quincentennial commemoration through a 5-webinar series. In fact, the first webinar series is Friday, and the rest of the other 3 webinars will also be conducted every Friday henceforth, with one remaining to be done on a Wednesday, all throughout the month of May. We are delighted that apart from the UP Manila organized commemoration, we also have a parallel webinar such as this one, organized by the Faura Project Incorporated. And this celebration is quite unique because we are not only celebrating and commemorating historical and cultural legacy of our ancestors, but also that in this particular occasion, our heritage with flowers. Diningid sa ating kaalaman na ang Pilipinas ay di lamang mayaman sa kultura, sapagkat kung meron tayong more than 100 ethno-linguistic groups, ibig sabihin we are very much culturally diverse. At of course sa UNESCO, kinikilala din tayo na mayaman sa likas yaman, kahit kalbo ng karamihan sa ating mga kagundukan. Andiyan pa rin, kinikilala pa rin tayong mega diversity rich in terms of our forest diversity and marine diversity, and of course logically we are also botanically rich. Kaya nga sa bawat Santa Cruzan o Flores de Mayo, naglalabasan ng mga iba't ibang klase ng mga bulaklak na palamuti. At sa bawat fiesta o festival ay hindi nawawala ang mga bulaklak. Pag-araw lalo na, pag-araw ng pag-ibig ay nagkaubusan ng bulaklak sa Mother's Day, mukhang nagkaubusan at nagmahalan din ng bulaklak. Ang isang sikat na Flower Festival sa Baguio na isang month-long celebration kada every February, at alam natin na parang hindi naubos yung mga bulaklak yata sa Baguio, no? Kasi month-long celebration at pagandahan ng mga pagpaparada ng mga bulaklak. No? Pero ang isang dapat natin sanang tignan ay kung paano protektahan at pagyamanin ang ating yamang bulaklak, katulad ng mga orkidya, mga hibiscus o gumamela, mga ilang pagita. Napakalungkot isipin ng ating bulaklak na ilang-ilang na napakabango ay patented ng isang Pranses. Kasi popular ito na ingredient ng pabango. Pag-aaring Pinoy, pero ang nakinabang ay dayuhang Pranses. Di ko alam kung ang sampagita ay patented na natin at baka mabiktima na naman tayo ng biopiracy. Kaya sana wag nating pabayaan at protektahan at pagyamanin ang ating mga natibong Pilipinong bulaklak. At bilang pinalaminsay, nais kong ialay sa inyo ang tula na hinirang ko kay Rio Alma, ang ating kasalukuyang chairman ng National Commission on Culture and the Arts at ating pambansang alagad ng sining na pinamagatang Sinusukol tayo ng mga bulaklak. Sinusukol tayo ng mga bulaklak kung gabing manipis ang samyo ng tala. Duguan ang dampi ng dilim sa dibdib. Malagim ang bukal ng mga gunita. Nilalango tayo ng bangot talulot kung walang magningas na landas sa gubat. At pagyakap natin sa banig at kumot, may punyal ang bawat aninong lumatat. Ito ba'y pagsubok sa ating pag-ibig o pantig ng abo sa ating pangako? Mahal, bigkasin mo ang tinig ng puot na tayo ilip sa mga bulaklak. Di tayo susuko sa libong magdamag. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Estacio, for gracing us with your presence for today's program. Indeed, flowers are really a big part of our culture, so it's really essential that we take care of our native flowers. Thank you again for your message, Dr. Estacio, and for reading us a wonderful poem. To follow Dr. Estacio's very inspiring words, Queens Manila, and with much gratitude, we thank her for her presence today. Professor Bonilla will once again introduce our special guest of honor.
We are honored to have with us our dynamic Chancellor, Carmencita D. Padilla. She is, as Dr. Estacio said, our Dean. She is our mother. So because she's Professor of Pediatrics at the College of Medicine. She's founding director of the Institute of Human Genetics and Newborn Screening Reference Center at the National Institutes of Health. She was conferred Academician of the National 8 in recognition of her varied contributions to the academic growth of genetics in the Philippines. Dr. Padilla is pioneer in genetics in the Philippines and the Asia-Pacific region. In the Philippines, she is responsible for setting up clinical genetic services at the Philippine General Hospital in 1990 and various genetic laboratories now housed in Institute of Human Genetics, NIH. She is also responsible for setting up national newborn screening services in the Philippines, currently available in more than 7,200 health facilities in the country and being served by 6 newborn screening laboratories and 14 continuity clinics that monitor long-term care of patients. In the area of policy making, she's responsible for Newborn Screening Act of 2004 and the Rare Disease Act of Republic Act 1047. Now, here she is, our mother, our Chancellor, Chancellor Carmencita D. Padilla. Thank you, ma'am.
Maraming salamat, Professor Padilla. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Mr. Al Ryan Alejandre, Executive Director of the National Commission for the Culture and the Arts, to our Dean, ang ating makatang dekano, Dean Leonardo Estacio Jr., Dr. Merites Buot from the UP Los Baños, Professor and Chair of the Associated Arts Program, and also the UP Open University, Dr. Mabini Dizon, Professor of the Department of Humanities of UPLB and UPOU, Dr. Martin Genopdepa, Director of OICA Visayas, Professor Joyce Alegre, Chair of the Division of Humanities, UP Tacloban, Professor G. Alaba Margate, Central Bicol State University of Agriculture, San Jose Pili, Camarines Sur, Professor Alice Adeva, Chair of the UP Manila CAS Department of Arts and Communication, Professor Hani Libertine Akanzar Labor, the convener of this conference on celebrating 500 years of heritage with local flora. to our conference speakers, participating artists in the festival art exhibits, members of the Faura Project, students, ladies and gentlemen, isang magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. This virtual Flores de Mayo is indeed a welcome respite from the COVID pandemic still swirling all around us, bringing this tradition back to UP Manila and to all of us, inspires us in our efforts to revitalize and enhance the preservation of our heritage in Ermita, particularly in Padre Faura Street and its environs. It is also an auspicious opportunity for the nostalgic appreciation of this locale, which has become a part of the life, a home, a sanctuary for every student, faculty, worker, and staff of UP Manila. In addition, there is pride in our hearts that Ermita, because this is the original birthplace of our university, having been founded in this exact place in 1908. But for our students and our guests, as a matter of fact, the College of Medicine preceded the university. It is founded in 1905. I have seen the evolution of the area since I entered the College of Medicine in 1977. Yes, more than 4 decades in this area. It was very different then. No malls, quiet Pedro Hill, and quiet Padre Faura. Dark, and very few people and very quiet side streets. But we must go back and remember how it was even before the university actually was born in this area. And since there were few buildings at that time, there were few people, and of course there were more flowers and maybe more birds at that time. So much has happened in the past couple of decades. Now, this occasion is also in keeping with the commemoration of the month of May as the National Heritage Month by virtue of Presidential Proclamation number 439, which aims to create among the Filipinos consciousness, respect, and love for the legacies of nations' cultural history. I commend and thank the Faura Project Incorporated, an organization formed by alumni, faculty, and students of the BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage and Arts Management Program of the University of the Philippines, Manila, and friends, bound by a common cause, which is to revive, revitalize, and sustain the rich cultural and historical heritage of Ermita. This group is a testament to the value of the BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage Arts Management Program of UP Manila, as this is the program in our CU that is directed towards preservation of our artistic and cultural riches. This highlights UP Manila's thrust not only in academics, but also in the field of arts. The theme and color of this year's festival is also in sync with the celebration of the Philippine Quincentenary, the UP Manila commemoration, which opened on May 7 with a webinar on several themes. Indeed, this ceremony with the theme celebrating 500 years of heritage and local flowers being marked with the observance of our quincentennial year gives it added beauty and color. We are in the middle of making this campus green and colorful. That's why I like the project. I hope that your group will help develop the campus to another respite from the very busy environment now. When the students and the alumni come and visit in 2 to 3 years, we expect the campus to be very green and hopefully colorful, hopefully with a lot of the local flowers that we can bring in. So I am one with you in your project. And every year, we must celebrate this, not only during the centennial or the quincentennial year, but every year let us remind our staff, our faculty, our students that the Philippines is a colorful country because of the flowers that we have, the local flowers that we have. The chosen topics and speakers mirror the richness and extensiveness of the Philippine cultural patrimony. And I thank the speakers for rekindling in us a deeper interest and passion for the things that remind us of our beginnings and identity as a people. So together, let us savor the flowers, reminisce the past, and revel in our rich heritage, very, very rich. And with this deepened humanity, we will be reinvigorated to rise and face the challenges of today. Let's enjoy the colors of La Flora in Ermita. Maraming salamat po sa inyo at isang magandang umaga po ulit sa inyong lahat.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Padilla, for your wonderful and inspiring message. We at the Faura Project are very excited and very much looking forward to making UP Manila more colorful with more Flores de Mayo festivals in the future. So thank you so much again, Chancellor Padilla. So all right, everyone, we just had two wonderful inspirational messages, a very good start to a very good conference. So let's keep the ball rolling with our first speaker. To properly introduce her, let me call on Attorney Myra Estrella, a BA Philippine Arts alumna and the Corporate Secretary of the Faura Project Incorporated. Take it away, Attorney.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Cha. Our first speaker is Professor Five in the University of the Philippines, Manila, and Program Coordinator of UP Manila's BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage, and Arts Management Program. She was named University Artist through the Arts Productivity Program of the University of the Philippines System, acknowledging her contribution in creative research, publication, and promotion of cultural heritage. She is also a UP Centennial and one UP Professorial Chair awardee. She graduated from UP Dalaman with degrees in BA Humanities Pre-Med and MA PhD Philippine Studies using Anthropology of Art as primary approach in research. Her research interests include Southeast Asian art, Anthropology of Art, and Medical Anthropology. Her most recent publications include the chapter in the Scopus Index book, Religious Tourism in Asia, Tradition and Change Through Case Studies, Oxford Cabby 2018, and journal articles, Faura, Cultural Heritage Amidst Conflict in Ermita, Manila, in the Faura Journal 2017, and the Ibaloy of Benguet as Active Agents in Health Negotiations, and Philippine Journal of Health Research and Development 2018. She is the founder and executive director of the Faura Project, and as a response to the Marawi siege, she convened the Faura Project Conference, The Lost and the Retrieved, Cultural Heritage Amidst Conflict in 2017, and the celebration of the annual Flores de Mayo sa Faura festivals. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our first speaker, Dr. Honey Libertine at Chancellor Labor.
Okay, so magandang umaga po muli sa ating lahat. Let me just show you my slides. Slideshow. All right, so heritage advocacies through Flores de Mayo festivals. So I hope to show you through this presentation how the promotion of local flora can indeed be used as platform for numerous heritage advocacies. So in my next slide, we see a page from the National Commission of Culture and the Arts website. And we see here that the month of May has in fact been declared as National Heritage Month. And as part of this declaration, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts enjoins all cultural agencies to participate in this national event by initiating their own heritage-related activities within the month of May. So we see here that our Flores de Mayo festivals are actually a response to this call. So in this slide, we see a page from the official Facebook site of the National Museum, and we see them also promote flowers in the month of May. So this was posted on the first Monday of this month. And we see here 4 local points showing images of endemic flora. So this is an architectural structure in UP Diliman, the Church of the Holy Sacrifice, which was designed by national artist Leandro Locsin. And we see here that this structure or this parish was also declared as one of the official Jubilee churches of the Archdiocese of Cubao. Now, since most of the people simply attend the Mass online, we see here the parish priest, Father Bong Tupino, offering flowers the first Sunday of May in behalf of the people. And from UP Diliman, we go to the area where UP Manila is located, so this Ermita. And in Ermita, we see the shrine of the Nuestra Senora de Guia, or more popularly known as Ermita Church. And this is their post on the first day of May, which they labeled as the start of May flowers. And we see on the picture, the altar laden with flowers, because precisely this was the start of their Flores de Mayo. This was the blessing of the Porta Santa, or of the Holy Door, also in Nuestra Senora de Guia. And interesting to see the presence of pandan plants at the background. And we see the significance of this background, of the pandan, in relation to the founding of Ermita. So we read on their museum exhibit that on a Saturday, 19th of May, 1571, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi took possession of Manila in honor of the King of Spain, Felipe II. And on this occasion, one of his soldiers roamed and reached as far as the seashore in what is now the site of Ermita Church. So there he saw a wooden female figure on top of a trunk surrounded by pandan leaves, so being venerated by the locals. So marking the spot where it was seen is the area where the Archdiocesan Shrine of the Nuestra Senora de Guia complex now stands. So its origin is not definitive, but its close resemblance to the Santo Niño de Cebu has made everyone who were present believe that it must have been brought there in 1521 to the Philippines by Magellan's ships and was sent by the Cebu native chiefs as a gift to one of the many rajas of Manila. So the significance of the plant, pandan leaves. So the pandan is an endemic plant in Southeast Asia. Okay, so this shows a slide from the lecture by Dr. Jaime Galvez Tan. It's given during the UP Manila Quadricentennial Lecture Series. This is a slide from his lecture wherein he discusses 3 medicinal plants described by Magellan's chronicler, Pigafetta, in 1521. So there was no mention of the pandan plant in his lecture, but we know for a fact that the pandan is endemic to Southeast Asia and definitely thrived in Philippine soil even previous to 1521. So the pandan has not been thoroughly studied, and so many of its health benefits are merely anecdotal. Its traditional applications, though, include joint pain relief and blood sugar management. The Royal Decree, 9 August 1578, the King of Spain declared Nuestra Senora de Guia as a sworn patroness of Manila by reason of the continual favors that the Blessed Virgin lavished on the city. She was referred to as the Nuestra Senora de Guia because of the assistance or guidance sailors received from her at sea. Since Spanish colonial times, she granted abundant favors, particularly to ship navigators. So up until now, the location of the shrine is there where it was founded. This is exactly where it was founded. And we see the image of Nuestra Senora de Guia in the lower right, recently clad in a new outfit designed by no less than the famous Filipino designer, Barge Ramos. Of course, we see the Nuestra Senora de Guia surrounded by flowers, and right beneath her is a pandan plant. But what is interesting, or more interesting, would be this embroidered pandan plants, no? Placed here meticulously by Barge Ramos. So indeed, local flora has a rightful place in the celebration of our quincentenary. We may only be celebrating this year the 450th year of the finding of this image, but its association with the Santo Niño de Cebu gives us one reason to celebrate it now. So more importantly though, its association with the pandan plant, which is native to the Philippines and its existence outdated, no? It gives us more reason to do so. So the second part of my presentation would be that of showing you the themes of our 3 Flores de Mayo festivals, which showcase and promote the importance of heritage with local flora. So the very first Flores de Mayo festival took place in 2018 with the theme of endemic flowers in the Philippines. So we see here an actual procession of endemic flowers on arches carried by some students in UP Manila. So the procession started from the oblation in the College of Arts and Sciences en route to the Centennial Oblation in front of the Philippine General Hospital. And from there, they proceeded to the PGH Chapel to sing some Marin songs. And from there to they proceed again, to the ophthalmology building. And the last stop was the Museum of the History of Ideas, no, where we had an exhibit of endemic flowers. So we had with us then Miss Bing Famoso, who eventually will found the Philippine Botanical Arts Society, no? And we will have her a second speaker for today's event. No? So this, the festival, the first Flores de Mayo festival was covered by CNN Philippines in national broadcast. So there was an artist talk in the event, and there were also workshops, no, on endemic flower painting, and these are actually shown, or the outcome of this workshop are actually shown on the sashes, no, which were worn by the students, no, during the procession. So this second Flores de Mayo festival was an advocacy, no, for the Arroceros Park. So the so-called lung or last lung of Manila. So we conducted awareness talks, provided nooks in UP Manila where students could input their signature in support of the preservation of the Arroceros Park. So yes, so we supported the signature campaign against building the gym right in the middle of the Arroceros Forest Park. And yes, we were most grateful to have been part of that campaign, for eventually the City of Manila declared the Arroceros Forest Park as a permanent forest park, disallowing any building of structures, which would be a deterrent to its being such. Okay. So yes, there was a ribbon cutting with the Arroceros Park representative, lectures on endemic and local flora, You see here Miss Mika Gonzalez giving one of her talks. No? She happens to be also a member now of the Faura Project. During that year, or in the same festival, no, there was a Flores Faura photo contest, and the idea there is to take photos of heritage sites or built heritage along Padre Faura Street or the Ermita area as a whole, but with this unique instruction of taking those pictures from the vantage point of a flower, of a local flower. Yes, so that year we also got the support of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, who enabled us to fly a guest from Tacloban, no? Professor Joyce Alegre. Okay. So this is also co-sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences. Thank you for the venue once again. And you see here the Dean, Dean Estacio, and Professor Alice Adeva, our program chair. Tokens for our guests. Okay, so the third festival was supposed to have taken place last year, if not for the pandemic. No? And we wanted the theme to be healthy parks and healthy people, which is a global movement that harnesses the power of parks and public lands as a health resource. So it works to advance the fact that all parks, urban and wildlife, or wildland, are cornerstones of people's physical, mental, and spiritual health, social well-being, and sustainability of the planet. This was an outcome of the International Union for Conservation of Nature Conference 2014, which took place in Sydney. So this was the conclusion of the SAD conference. And we see the response. Oh yes, here first we see the slide, which puts in context that conclusion, that contact with nature is essential for human emotional, physical, and spiritual health and well-being. So we see the response of Canada by setting a day each year to give free access or free use of the Ontario Park. We see several European countries participate in this European Day of Parks in 2017. We see a number of them united in this call to support parks, and it's good for mankind. And then in the US in 2018, they had something similar. So we wanted to also do our share, share in this advocacy in that particular or in last year's festival. We in fact started to already do preliminary preparation for that event through our revitalization of the Plaza de Nuestra Senora de Guia project. This is the nearest park from UP Manila. This is a park which is right in front of the Ermita Church. You see here that the image, or an image of the Nuestra Senora de Guia at the very site where the image was found in 1565, and right beneath that is a flower bed, but you will notice that not a single pandan plant was present. Thus, the greening of the park became a part of a heritage project, with the Sangguniang Kabataan officers of Ermita, who helped us gather children in the park. We see Miss Marinel Completo, the SK chairperson, at the lower leftmost picture, who happens to be our student in UP Manila, no? Majoring in the Phil Arts, no? In the BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage and Arts Management program. You see in the picture right above this, some Phil Arts students pointing at image of the built heritage along Padre Faura Street from an activity book prepared for the children. No? It's a heritage book, no? Which could be colored. So we see as well here the parish priest of Ermita Church who we had to invite since we were using his venue. And beside him, the other officers of the Sangguniang Kabataan, no, of Barangay Ermita, of the district of Ermita. So we also prepared, we see it on the right, lower right on the page, on the slide, art packs, no, for the children. No? So yeah, together with the book, coloring materials and the like. No? Well, the Rotary Club of Ermita sponsored the food. So it was a collab, no, of different, both private and public entities. So this is the book prepared for the children. Had 2 volumes, volume 1, volume 2. Plates, yeah, had colored versions. Okay. See here the marker of PGH in one of the page on the book. All right. So, but again, no, it's because of the pandemic that didn't push through, and this brings us now to this year, 2021, wherein it was not a no-brainer that the team should actually be in sync, no, with our quincentennial commemorations. No? So we had to, so despite the pandemic, we had to push through, no, with this festivity. No? It was something that we had to push through, no, to be part of the celebration of the quincentenary. So since our initial plan of a grand procession of endemic and local flowers to the conduct of an actual Santa Cruzan along Padre Faura cannot push through, we celebrate flowers this year through an online exhibit of native flowers by some of the best botanical art painters in the country. So this exhibit will be launched right after our series of talks this morning. And I end my presentation here. So once again, welcome to the Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. And we hope you get to join us as well in the other activities that have been planned for the entire week. So once again, thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Labor, for that great and enlightening talk. Truly, I learned more about why we're celebrating the festival and all the wonderful things that come along with it. So before we proceed to the next part of our program, I would just like, we at the Faura Project would just like to show appreciation to our first 2 speakers. So let me just share my screen to show the certificates. Okay. Okay, so the Faura Project Incorporated with the Philippine Botanical Art Society and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Leonardo Estacio and to Dr. Carmencita Padilla for speaking on celebrating 500 years of local flora, given this 10th day of May 2021 during the conference on celebrating 500 years of local flora, and for being part of the Faura Project's Flores de Mayo Festival 2021. Signed by Dr. Honey Libertine Acanzar Labor, Executive Director of the Faura Project Incorporated, and the convener for the conference on celebrating 500 years of local flora. Also signed by Ms. Willa Famosa Takan, the President of the Philippine Botanical Arts Society. So thank you so much again to the Dean and to the Chancellor for being with us here today. And of course, before anything else, let's have a picture taking. So everyone, please open your camera and let's smile. Yes, let's wait for more people to turn on their cameras. Yes, it's so wonderful seeing everyone. Okay, let's wait for Sompa. Okay. Okay, I think that's everyone. So yeah, I will just count to 3 and then let's all smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, next page. Continue smiling, guys. Smile. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again to the Dean and to the Chancellor. It was nice having you guys. Thank you. Okay, so I think now we can proceed to the next segment of our program. Okay, so now for our next speaker, she will be talking to us more about the Philippine Botanical Artists Society and their advocacy for Philippine endemic flowers. I would like to again call on Attorney Estacio for the introduction.
Our next speaker is an AB Philippine Arts graduate from the University of the Philippines, Manila. She was a full-time housewife before she ventured into the arts in 2016. An advocate of Philippine native flora and fauna, she aims to raise awareness about its conservation and protection through her art. She is an artist whose media are oil, acrylic, watercolor, and pastel. In addition to painting, she engages in pottery and portraiture. She has had 4 one-women art shows and more than 80 group exhibits in her 4 years. Exhibitions are Bulak, A Hiligaynon, Word for Flower, Gateway Gallery 2017, Pagsibol, Pagkamulat sa kahalagahan at kagandahan ng mga likas na bulaklak, University of the Philippines Museum of History of Ideas 2018, Masdan Mo ang Mga Ibon, BM Ruins and Museum in San Juan, Batangas 2018, Laksang Buhay, The Life and Legacy of Perias Ong, UP College of Science, UP Diliman 2020. She was also a delegate to the Philippines-Malaysia Synergism 2018 Cultural Exchange held in Manila, Kuala Lumpur, and Penang in March 2019. As an art educator, she has facilitated art workshops at the Metropolitan Museum of the Philippines, the Museum de la Salle University Taft, the University of the Philippines Museum of the History of Ideas, San Beda College Alabang Museum, and with the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated at the University of Santo Tomas. In 2018, the Manila Art Fest invited her as the featured guest artist, where she conducted an endemic flora and fauna fabric painting workshop. During her 3rd solo show in Batangas, she launched her brainchild Ikot Museo, a traveling exhibit which aims to raise awareness on Philippine native and endemic flora and fauna. It strives to bring her wildlife art to all Filipinos, especially those in communities without access to museums and art galleries. Advocacy for the conservation of flora and fauna through art inspired her to establish the Philippine Botanical Art Society and the Philippine Fauna Art Society in September 2019. In collaboration with botanists from the National Museum of Natural History, she believes that these 2 organizations will help promote raising awareness for the Philippines' endemic and native wildlife. In further pursuit of raising awareness for Philippine biodiversity, she began donating her Philippine eagle paintings to Philippine embassies and Philippine Consulate General. She ultimately hopes her art can inspire the Filipino people to protect and conserve their country's rich biodiversity and its critically endangered species. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our second speaker, Ms. Bing Formosa. Good morning, Ms. Bing.
Good morning, Attorney Mara. Thank you very much for that generous introduction. Chancellor Carmencita Padilla, Dean Leonardo Estacio, Department of Arts and Communications Chair Professor Alice Adeva, to my former professors who have a profound influence on my current work and advocacy for Philippine art and biodiversity. Nandito po sila lahat. Nandito po si Dr. Grace Udal, Professor Bing Bonilla, and of course, Dr. Levi Achansar Labor. To the members of the Faura Project, to the Philippine Botanical Art Society community, and my co-founders, Dr. Edwin Tadiosa and Mr. John Ray Caliado, guests, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I am being famoso, an advocate of Philippine endemic flora and fauna, and founder of the two art societies, the Philippine Botanical Art Society and the Philippine Fauna Art Society. I am a proud alumni of the BA Philippine Arts program under the Arts Management track. I would like to thank my former professor, Dr. Levy, and the Faura Project for inviting me and the Philippine Botanical Art Society to be part of the 3rd Flores de Mayo sa Calle Faura Festival. I would like to share with you my art journey and how I started my advocacy of Philippine endemic flora and fauna. It started in 2016 when I read from a Facebook post about the cherry blossom tree planting in Benguet province, where 100 trees were planted, but only a handful survived. There was also a plan for a cherry blossom festival to attract local tourists to spend their money here rather than go to Japan and Korea. Why create a festival for an exotic flower when in fact we don't have our very own flower first festival in the first place? Sure, we have the Panagbenga, which is one of my favorite festivals, but it only displays cut flowers, which are mostly exotic as well. What I am referring to is a flower festival where we can appreciate the flowers while it is still attached to the plant or to the tree, alive and still breathing. A flower festival where we can see our own native flora. The Facebook post fueled my interest to research about our native flora species and also an awakening of sort. The flowers that I was familiar with, like santan, bougainvillea, calachuchi, camia, dahlia, are actually exotic or introduced flowers. Perhaps we remember that class sections in grade schools and high schools were named after these flowers. We would not think that they are not native to our country. After I graduated from the UP Manila Philippine Arts program, I got married, focused on my family, and never experienced working. I started late in my art career. I was already 42 years old when I decided to join my very first group art exhibit. Even without a formal training in the arts and basically a newbie in the art community, and even if I was still struggling how to start a painting and how to finish it, I held my first solo show, Bulak. Bulak is a Hiligaynon word for flower. Unaware yet about the meanings of endemic, indigenous, exotic, and native, I included some flowers which are exotic to our country, like the gumamela and the sampaguita in the exhibit. It is hard to imagine that our very own national flower is not even from our country, but originated from the Himalayas. It was first cultivated in the Philippines in the 17th century when it was brought here by travelers. It was in 1934 that it was proclaimed as the national flower by an American governor through Proclamation number 652. Perhaps the Americans thought it was native to here in our country since sampaguita was deeply rooted in our culture. We have so many beautiful endemic flowers like the waling-waling, which deserves to be hailed as our national flower. In 2004, there was a motion in the House of Representatives to make the waling-waling as a national flower. In August 2013, a bill was passed by the Senate to make it as our national flower alongside sampaguita. Unfortunately, President Noynoy Aquino vetoed House Bill 565, saying that there are other ways to promote the protection and preservation of the waling-waling without declaring it as a second national flower. In 2019, waling-waling was declared as a national orchid. As I further researched for endemic species and while preparing for my second solo show in May 2018, I came across an article about the Flora de Filipinas by historian Ambeth Ocampo. Flora de Filipinas is the first comprehensive and fully illustrated study of the Philippine flora published 2 centuries ago by Father Francisco Manuel Blanco, a Spanish friar and a botanist. This book is very important in Philippine art history because it contains botanical plates drawn by 17 Filipino artists commissioned by Father Blanco, which includes Felix Resurrección Hidalgo, Felix Martinez, Felix Pardo de Tavera, Miguel Zaragoza, and Lorenzo Guerrero. Surprisingly, according to Ambeth Ocampo, they were never mentioned in that book, Flora de Filipinas. Researching further on Philippine botanical led me to the website Botanical Art Worldwide. That year, there was a World Botanical Expo with 25 participating countries. I was excited to see our country on the list, hoping that it will connect me to botanical artists in our country. But sadly, the Philippines wasn't on the list. When I found out that there is no Botanical Art Society in our country, I decided to put up one. Fortunately, arts management was my track in Philippine arts. And even after 3 decades passed since I graduated from the university, the education, training, and values strongly instilled in me the love and respect to protect, uphold, and conserve our cultural and natural heritage. Establishing the Philippine Botanical Art Society gave me the opportunity to contribute to our national identity through our native flora. The creation of the Philippine Botanical Art Society was a very exciting journey, which started with a visit to the Botany Division of the National Museum of Natural History in May 2018, where I met 3 of our country's foremost botanists, Dr. Edwin Padilla, Dr. Danny Tandang, and Mr. John Ray Caliado. They were very receptive when I first brought up my intention of organizing a botanical art society in the Philippines, a botanical art society that would support the advocacy in creating awareness about our Philippine native flora. They showed encouragement and support, noting that our country, being a mega diverse country, should have its own botanical art society. On September 4, 2019, exactly a year and 4 months after I first visited the Botany and National Herbarium Division of the National Museum of Natural History, Philippine Botanical Art Society was born. PhilBAS, Philippine Botanical Art Society, or PhilBAS, hopes that through botanical art, it would educate our fellow Filipinos about our native flora and its conservation status, as most species are now considered endangered. Moreover, the Society intends to revive the botanical art style and encourage Filipino artists to paint our native flora in this art form. Presently, PhilBAS engages more than 100 Filipino artists, a community, in its advocacy to spread awareness about Philippine endemic and indigenous flora species through art. Since its establishment in 2019, PhilBAS has held 4 botanical art exhibitions and exhibited more than 100 botanical artworks. The Faura Project's yearly Flores de Mayo is a befitting platform to showcase our native flora. The Santa's elaborate processions and flower-adorned floats is an enduring Filipino tradition since 1854. Exotic flowers such as roses and camellia typically dominate the event's decorations. With this Flores de Mayo exhibit, the Philippine Botanical Art Society hopes to bring attention to our native flora. More ambitiously, with every Flores de Mayo exhibit we hold each year, the Society and the Faura Project aspire for more Filipinos to associate Flores de Mayo with abundance of Philippine native flora. Isn't it amazing how a small country such as ours is one of the 17 mega diverse countries in the whole world? To be counted as a mega diverse country, 50% of the country's species should be endemic. We have more than 10,000 native flora species, and more are yet to be discovered. Out of this 10,000 species, 50% is endemic. Sadly, though, more and more species are threatened because of habitat loss due to natural causes and human activity like poaching, illegal logging, converting forests to commercial areas, and etc. But hope is not lost. Let us do our part to help conserve and protect our rich wildlife. On behalf of Phil Bass and my fellow participating artists, Jan Ray Caliado, Becky Chung Santos, Larry Dianco, Mio Diaz, Isa Domingo, Anna Garcia, Patrick Gozon, Gigi Manalastas, Cherry May Pestaño, Carla Sahona, and Mr. Jose Valerio. I would like to thank as well the Faura Project team, Dr. Levi Ajanzar, Professor Bing Godilla, Attorney Mara Estrella, Charis del Castillo, Elijah del Rosario, and Leanda Garcia, and especially to my daughter, Willa Nicole, for helping me with my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention and for this opportunity to share with you my advocacy of Philippine endemic and indigenous flora through art. To end my talk, I will be sharing a video coverage of the first Flores de Mayo sa Calle Faura Festival held in May 2018, which inspired me to finally organize the Philippine Botanical Art Society. Muli po, maraming salamat sa inyo para sa kalikasan.
This month, we celebrate one of the beauties. Pauline Versosa tells us about one celebration for Flores de Mayo.
To celebrate the merry month of flowers, students of UP Manila launched a special activity and
ma-feature yung mismong flowers ng Philippines para mas ma-appreciate ng mga tao yung mismong flowers natin, mas makapag-raise ng awareness.
Students paraded along Faura Street in Manila on Thursday morning wearing sashes hand-painted with the Philippine endemic flowers such as the Doña Aurora, Waling Waling, and Kapa Kapa. The parade ended with a special exhibit entitled Pagsibol at the Museum of History of Ideas. Artist and endemic flora advocate Bing Pomoso shares that her inspiration is rooted on her desire to shed light on the neglected culture.
I specifically planned to paint them so that to create awareness also how to conserve and preserve them. Because it's really hard if these flowers die. No, it's part of our natural heritage and our cultural heritage, and it speaks about us as Filipinos. So it's about high time to show the world what is truly Filipino through our endemic flora.
Project Faura doesn't just aim to shed light on the country's unique flowers, it also seeks to make Padre Faura Street a center of heritage and art in the city. Project convener and Professor Dr. Levi Labor says this was a great learning experience for her and her students, and hopes the Filipino community will study more about the Philippines' endemic flora, especially during Flores de Mayo.
We'll be here until Saturday, no? So it's kind of extended. So the week is kind of extended till Saturday, and we were informed that there will also be another workshop which will be open to the public this time. So you are all invited to also join the exhibit.
Pauline Versosa, CNN Philippines.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pomoso, for sharing more about Phil Bass with us. As a Philippine art student myself, also thinking about taking the arts management track, hearing about your life post-Phil Arts is making me so excited for the future. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Pomoso. Okay, so now for our next speaker, she will be talking to us more about flowers and plants with her topic on Lady's Choice, medicinal plants, flowers, and plants with extraordinary qualities for women in 16th and 17th century Philippines. So I would like to again call on Attorney Estrella for the introduction.
Our next speaker is a professor of history at the Department of History and Faculty Affiliate of the Asian Center, University of the Philippines. Her work focuses on the history of medicine and colonial Southeast Asia. She is currently Deputy Editor of the Regional Journal of Southeast Asian Studies, an international peer-reviewed journal that seeks to provide a platform for Southeast Asian scholars based in Southeast Asia to share their research internationally. Her book, Traditional Medicine in the Colonial Philippines, 16th to the 19th Century, UP Press 2017, was awarded Best Book in Science by the National Book Awards of the Philippines in 2018. To date, this book is the first book of history that won the science category in the National Book Awards. In the same year, she was awarded the Andrew Mellon Foundation Fellowship by the American Philosophical Society. In 2019, she was conferred the title University Scientist of the University of the Philippines System, a distinction that recognizes and supports the development of science and technology and encourages and rewards scientific productivity. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our next speaker, Ms. Maria Mercedes G. Planta.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Share ko na po yung PowerPoint ko. Okay na po ba? Am I audible? Naririnig po ba ako?
Yes po.
Okay. Sige. Sa organizers ng event na ito, especially to Dr. Levy Labor, I am very grateful for being part of this activity. I took note of Being Famoso's presentation and realized when I first was invited to this activity, I have never heard of a Philippine Botanical Art Society. Probably because it is only 3 years, but I am very glad to be part of this activity, primarily because I am also one with a vision of this society, even if my take is history. So I will begin my presentation now. So my talk is about women, women's the uses of medicinal plants, flowers, and plants with extraordinary qualities for women in the 16th and 17th century. This presentation is taken from my book, Traditional Medicine in the Colonial Philippines. My topic today aims to also give us a range of the medicinal repertoire of traditional medical practitioners in the Philippines, based on their knowledge of medicinal plants and herbs during the period under consideration, but with particular focus on flowering plants, to argue that prior to colonialism, we Filipinos already have a defined medical tradition. The sources for my work, the earliest source is Francisco Ignacio Alsina's 1668 work. This was published in the 17th century, but Alsina's work was not only the first to have documented Filipino knowledge of medicinal plants. He was assigned in the Visayas area in Samar, but his work in the 17th century may have been published in the 17th century, but the plants that he documented were those plants that Filipinos have used for their everyday ailments prior to the 17th century. So I argue that even if this book is in the 17th century, the plants that were documented were actually plants that Filipinos used prior to the coming of the Spaniards. So the work of Alsina's work in 1668, I supplemented it with the work of Fernando Santamaria in 1815. This is probably one of the most popular because while this book was originally written in Spanish, it was translated into Tagalog. So most probably, this work was very popular because it was the only work that was translated into Tagalog.
I interrupt? Yes, may we know if you are actually showing us a PowerPoint presentation?
Oh.
Because right now,
sorry.
Hear you
Teka. Ano? Sandali po ha. Sorry ha.
Hear you very well, but we were wondering if you have slides. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Sorry. Teka lang. Ayan, sorry. Nakalimutan ko mag-share. Sorry po. So, okay na po ba?
Yes po.
Okay. Sorry po. Okay. So, dito na po tayo. So, these are the sources for my work. So again, this is the earliest work that noted, listed, identified the Filipinos' use of medicinal plants in the Philippines, confined only to the Visayas, particularly in Samar Island. From the work of Alsina, I supplemented his work with the work of Santa Maria in 1815. Again, as I have mentioned, this work is the only work of its kind that was translated into Tagalog. So presumably very famous, or at least more popular to many people, popular in the sense that not only people knew about it, but the plants that were listed in Santa Maria's work were probably known to many Filipinos. So this was done in 1815. And the other work, of course, is Flora de Filipinas, Manuel Blanco's iconic work, published in the 19th century, particularly in 1883 to 1893. This is a 3-volume work that consisted of botanical plates, very beautiful, reissued by the San Agustin Museum in 1996. Note that all these 3 authors were Spanish missionaries. So the knowledge of Philippine medicinal plants in general, we owe to the Spanish friars, who were the first to have been in close contact with the Filipinos, who were able to observe the Filipinos' ways of life, and were able to witness that the Filipinos' means of understanding their health, the way they address their health problems, were proof that Filipinos, despite the Spaniards' low regard of them, had effective ways of addressing their health problems. Eventually, the Spaniards established a botanical garden that was located in Intramuros. So the botanical garden was aptly named. It has a very beautiful name, Real Jardín Botánico, the Royal Botanical Gardens of the Philippines. Of the many plants that were listed, beginning in the work of Alsina to the work of Santa Maria, to the work of Blanco. Actually, after Blanco, the Americans came. They also built on those previous works. So you have the work of Merrill, you have the work of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera. Finally, in the 20th century, you have the work of Quisumbing, Eduardo Quisumbing. Every single one of these authors, their works built on the works of the past. So from the work of Alsina in 1668 to the time of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, and eventually the compendium of works, the compendium that was made by Eduardo Quisumbing, botanist of the National Museum, they all built from one another. So from those works, I chose medicinal plants that were flowering, dating back from the work of Alsina, but limiting only to those that have been scientifically identified. So, of course, the most famous is our Hibiscus rosa sinensis, our everyday gumamela that in UP Los Baños, they were able to cultivate and propagate with many different varieties in the 20th century. Now, this plate is taken from the work of Manuel Blanco. So, as Being Famoso has stated, Blanco's work is a visual treat for any one of you who has the chance to see it. It was made in the 19th century by some of the Philippines' very first artists who set these things to print. But for our interest today, the gumamela, from the time of Francisco Ignacio Alsina, it has a special use for women, especially for women suffering from menstrual cramps. So the gumamela's root is boiled as tea. and then taken for those with menstrual cramps. Its buds, when they are not yet in bloom, when mixed with aloe vera and pounded and applied as plaster to the forehead, also seems to alleviate pain, particularly menstrual cramps. I don't know why it's made in it's placed in the forehead. Apart from menstrual cramps, the gumamela also has a special use. It is also used for inflammation. So the pounded buds mixed with lime is applied as plaster to the inflamed area. So it's supposed to soothe whatever it is that is swelling, particularly probably in the legs. When the buds fully bloom and it is boiled, it can also induce sweat. We remember that Filipinos understand basic concepts of health as a balance between hot and cold. So when one is excessively hot, that means one has a fever, but to take out the fever, to make it go down, one has to sweat it out. So one of the ways to do that was to boil the buds of the gumamela plant and then take it as a drink to induce sweat and probably to relieve one of fever or a hot temperature. The other plant that we have is of course our national flower, the sampaguita, also known as Jasminum sampa. For many of us, this is very popular. Its immediate use is not only because it's very beautiful, it is a symbol of honor when you are given a garland of a sampaguita. It is also used as offering to our venerated saints. But for women in the 16th and 17th century, the sampaguita is more than just a beautiful flower. It is also a flower that aids women in childbirth because of its property to heal wounds. According to Alcina, the boiled sampaguita flower can be taken or can be applied, can be taken, but he says, but the roots are boiled but must be used sparingly because a large amount could be dangerous. The problem that I have encountered in my study are two things. Number one, sometimes the information is incomplete. Alcina says we have to use the roots of the sampaguita with caution. I don't know why, but I can only assume that probably because it can be harmful. I mean, it can burn you. Probably, I don't really know. But these are the challenges of working with data at a time when we have no means of verifying them. The only way that I have done to adjust, to adapt, or to manage this limitation is to look at its scientific identification. There are many other plants that have been described by Alcina, by Santa Maria, by all the other Spanish missionaries who tried to document these plants in the Philippines. But another problem is that their documentation, sometimes they only relied on local names, and the local names have no more bearing. So I have another one. It's called dalupang. Dalupang, now when you Google it, the dalupang that will appear is called Urena lobata. But in my original list, it's called Urena multifada. When you consult the plant list, botanists would tell you that the plant list is the most reliable scientific site that one can go to verify plants. So in the plant list, the lupang is considered unresolved. But in the work of Alcina, Alcina describes it as a very beautiful flower. So while the gumamela and the sampaguita are not only very beautiful, but have medicinal properties, the dalupang is considered very valuable by women, not only because beauty, but also because of its practical use. Now, this is the dalupang of the 21st century image that I have no way of knowing if this is what Alcina refers to. However, this is described the dalupang. So from the work of Alcina, he noted the dalupang, which he also described as a weed that is considered interesting. So the leaves of the dalupang reminded him of the mallows of Spain, but the plant grew larger. He observed that its flowers served as a clock, blooming all year long without fail. The beautiful blossoms, he notes, made him remember the white rose of Spain, similarly having 5 or 6 petals. The dalupang flowers were yellow in color. What I found today are pink in color, but with reddish or flesh-like color of fine appearance, and had a little fringe about the reddish fibers. Alcina relates how it was used by Visayan housewives, recording that the scentless dalupang flower has an unusual characteristic. It always remains closed until about 9 o'clock in the morning, whether the sun is out or not. In the days before timekeeping devices, the women took its opening as a signal that it was time to prepare their midday meal, so that after grinding their rice and making all the preparations, they ate at approximately noon. At 3 in the afternoon, or a little later, the flower begins to slowly close until it is completely closed by sunset. The flowers last for many days as this pattern takes place. Colonial Filipinos planted this shrub near their houses, and by its opening and closing, they knew how many hours of the day had elapsed and how many remained until nightfall. So, apart from the dalupang, there is one plant that is probably quite familiar to us. It's called alas cuatro. Alas cuatro, when you go to the province, is still very much around. Why it's called alas cuatro? Because it blooms at 4 p.m. punctually. I don't know if it's programmed for a Philippine clock, and I have not experimented with it in places with different time zones, but these are very cute things that most people do not really know about, except probably flower enthusiasts. Now, there is another plant of the Visayans that has no scientific correspondence at all. It's called the kalipayan. It's a flowering plant with variegated leaves with blends of green and yellow. When it blooms, the blossom is seen to be entirely pure and white. By 9 in the morning, it starts to grow rosy, its color eventually deepening into a bright red hue. Later still, it grows redder. The flower is gone by the next day, and the leaves are all dull and dark. So these are some of the flowering plants that Filipinos, especially women, value for their medicinal properties, not only for their beauty, and also for their practical use. There are other plants that I have identified. So you have the castor oil, which women use for hair and scalp treatment. Of course, we have the very famous aloe vera that we know dates back from the time of Alcina, and it's used for its properties for hair growth. We have the Philippine tongue or balocanal that I have identified as Rutelis triperma, used by women, especially mothers, for their children who have lice or puto. These are just some of the many plants that the Philippines is rich with. The plants are divided not only as flowering plants, there are also trees, but there are also plants of animal, there are also cures of animal origin. But the point of the study is that as of now, we have merely scratched the surface of our resources. I have chosen these plants not only because they are familiar, but because they are everyday plants that we see but are not necessarily aware of. Their properties have helped Filipinas in many instances in the past. And today, in the period of the pandemic, where we are led to rediscover our uh, our environment, our natural resources, perhaps this is a good time to look back and to encourage many of us that some of the medical everyday practical needs that we encounter or that we have to confront, the solutions are just right in our backyard. Maraming salamat po. Okay po. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Planta, for sharing that very interesting session with us. I personally did not know of the many uses of our endemic flowers. I mean, who would have thought that not only is the sampaguita a beautiful flower, but it also aided women of the past with childbirth. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So thank you so much, Dr. Planta, for sharing your time with us today. Okay, so now for your next speaker, he will be talking to us about botanical illustrations then and now. So I would like to again call on Attorney Estrella for the introduction.
Our last speaker is a botanist museum researcher from Botany and National Herbarium Division of the National Museum of the Philippines. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Forestry, magna cum laude, at College of Agriculture and Forestry, West Visayas State University. He has delivered various lectures and workshops about plant taxonomy, herbarium techniques, conservation, and botanical art. He has published various papers of new species plants from Philippines and a field guidebook about ferns of Chiang Mai, Thailand. His research interests are pteridophytes, various flowering plants, and gymnosperms. He's active in sports like badminton, dragon boat, and trail running, and in fact, he enjoys joining trail running in Cordillera to document Philippine flora while running. He enjoys drawing flora and fauna in his free time. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our speaker, Mr. John Ray C. Caliado.
Good morning to each and everyone. So I would like to share my uh, presentation for this morning. Okay. Sorry. So good morning. So mayong aga sa lahat, sa tanan. So my name is John Ray. So I will present to you more about the botanical scientific illustration. So first, we discuss the difference of some of the art that being done. So first, let's define a flower painting or a plant portrait. So this emphasize is much emphasis is more about the pleasing painting, much less on the botanical accuracy or the natural colors or the various features of the flower. So this kind of painting will show a flower, but it doesn't show the real identity of a plant. So later, I can show you some of the samples. Next, let's define a botanical art. So a botanical art is always scientifically and botanically correct, but not necessarily complete. So it could be a portion of the plant that shows its flowers, the way it branches, and not showing more of the features that can define it as a species or the distinguishing feature that separates it from its family, to its genera, to its closely related species. So that's a botanical art. So mostly these are the arts that are being done by artists that been shown sa mga shows and other events. Then finally, what is botanical illustration or a plant illustration, or more or less the botanical scientific illustration. So the emphasis is on the scientific record or botanical accuracy to enable identification of a plant. So most of the botanical illustration are used for publication. So mga ano to, like if you have a new species, the artist and the botanist will work together to discuss what uh, part of the plant should be drawn, what are the emphasis na kailangan makita so that it could be distinguished as a new species. So basically, most of the botanical illustration are monochrome, that it's either drawn digitally or using pen and ink. So mostly there were replanted nilad plants in Intramuros. So if you go to I forgot may portion doon na gardens Intramuros where they planted this plant and they survived there. So here makikita natin yung natural habit ng nilad itself. And here this shows plant portrait. But without the label na nilad plant siya, hindi natin siya ma-identify true to its natural features. So nakikita natin na medyo purplish ang flower, the the leaves are not opposite, so and so on. So it is a flower painting or a plant portrait. And here an old codex, so it is an illustrated codex handwritten in an unknown language and a written system. So this is a very old manuscript dated 15th century. So this illustration of folios with 112 of in the herbal section. So the plants here are ambiguously identifiable or hindi natin ma-identify through the true species kung anong siya talaga, kung anong species siya. But we can know that these illustrations are plants because they have a flower, a leaves, and roots. But for identification, it is not useful to use this as for identifying plants. So now, let's go to botanical art. So ito, yung wildlife, may harang, okay. So here, a Philippine wildlife painting na gawa ni Paulo Castillo Fuentes. So this is a landscape incorporating endemic plants and animals. So here, we can readily identify mga on the left painting. So meron tayong flame-breasted fruit cup. So the plants associated around ay readily identifiable sa genus. Like there are rhododendron, medinilla, and some dendrobium orchids. While on the right painting, we can see ma-identify yung pitcher plant. Who knows? Sino makaka-identify? Any in the comment section? So this particular Nepenthes is Nepenthes Attenboroughi, so named after David Attenborough. So it can be readily identifiable. But this painting is a botanical art. It shows the accuracy of the plant, but doesn't show all the necessary identifiable characters to define it from other related species. So these are botanical arts. Next slide. Okay, wait lang. Okay, next. So ito rin, it could be, this is a botanical art. Hindi siya detailed in terms of showing the distinct characteristics of each species, but this is a botanical art that shows the different variety, size, and shape ng mga Rafflesia natin. So this is considered as a botanical art, but not a botanical scientific illustration that are used for publication. So usually it is used for publication in most regulation. So this is also a botanical art. It shows the habit of the plant, and with the use of the text, it describes the different species that are found in a particular ecosystem. So this one is a field guide from Europe. So makikita natin yung different floral structure nila and the color of the flower. So it could be used for in field guide to identify the different species found on an area. Okay, next. So in the National Museum of Fine Arts, so meron tayo doon na original sets of facsimile of the Decollard paintings. So this shows an 18th century botanical expedition that shows the plants that were found during the time. So on the left, we have the local mga Geminilla philippinensis and the Bixa aureliana that were introduced during the galleon trade. So the plants were carried during a long voyage from Mexico and it brought to the Philippines. So may mga interchange or exchange of plants din doon. So the plants from Mexico were established here sa Philippines and they were being used by the Filipino people. And so kaso nasa uh, MECQ pa tayo, if the it will be lifted and the reopening of the National Museum, you can visit those paintings sa National Museum of Fine Arts. But here, we can see the portion of the plant, yung branch siya, showing the fruits, the flowers, and then some of the cross-section of the fruit, the flower, but doesn't shows the scale. Sorry, medyo delayed ang next. Okay. So also here, the Flora Malaysiana, Flora de Filipinas, published by Father Manuel Blanco. So it also shows the some of the botanical illustrations, like the malunggay, which is also introduced during the galleon trade and are endemic Dillenia philippinensis or the catmon. So at the background, you can see a line drawing showing the features of the leaf venation, the cross-section of the fruit, the floral arrangement of the sepals, and also here in malunggay, you can see the inner portion of the seeds and the shape of the fruit. So this shows the characteristic of a particular species. So it can readily be identifiable. And one of also illustrated sa Flora de Filipinas by Padre Blanco, so the nilad, so it's more accurately drawn compared to the early photos that yung nilad painting na yon can be seen in the LRT 1. So makikita natin along the road pag sa biyahe from Vito Cruz all the way to City Hall. So naka-drawn doon. But here, this species is more accurately drawn with some line drawing showing the cross-section of the flowers and the fruits and the actual shape of the leaves. And it depicts the actual branching of the plant. So now today, botanical and scientific illustration are basically used for publishing new species. So currently, here drawn by UPIN. So some of our new species that published last year, so mga Medinilla ultramaficola and Begonia cabanilliaceae. So you can see first here in the Begonia, there are scale bar that will show you the actual size of the plant if you are going to see it in the field. And there are portions that shows the male and female flower. So here makikita natin yung male flowers and yung B and letter B, the male flowers, and the E, the female flowers. And also there are magnification of certain parts like the C, the staminate or the parts where the pollen is released, and the stigma, letter G, that will get the pollen and be pollinated into fruits. And also this illustration shows the pattern of the leaf. While here in Medinilla ultramaficola, it shows the branching of the flowers, the location where the flowers develop, and the shape of the leaves. So basically, it used to define the structure of the plants that could be readily identifiable from other related species. So some of the new species also were based on herbarium specimens. So artists and the botanists worked together to reconstruct yung plant that are being described. So here I have a photo of Nepenthes armin in the field, which is found only in the mountains of Mount Giting-Giting in Sibuyan Island in Romblon. So here before it was published, they haven't seen any actual specimens, but instead they have dried specimens of this Nepenthes, and they recreate or reconstruct the whole structure. As you can see, the shape of the Nepenthes picture is close to the shape of the actual plants itself from the wild. And here the flowers, the male flowers, you can see some of the glands. So it is based on the specimens that they found and they reconstruct it. So yan yung kailangan. No? And below, you can see the hairs. So also they take note that some species of Nepenthes have thicker hairs or longer hair. So that are minute structures that are very important to identify the different species. And also for very small specimens like moss, so mostly photographs can take all the information. So we need to illustrate them to show all the structures. So here H, I, and J, it shows the cross section on every portion of the lamina or the leaf. Also here, every cell is drawn by the artist. So the botanist will instruct the artist to draw all the actual numbers that being shown in the cross section. So for moss, it's very uh, uh, difficult to identify them by just seeing the actual plant. So botanists need to put it in the glass slide to show the minute characters like the shape of the cells, the positioning of the cells. So yan yung identification for the most of the bryophytes. And also botanical illustrations are used for taxonomic books. So this one is Flora maliciana, seed plant spot characters. So the spot characters. So one of the pages there, it shows the venation of the leaf and the relative position of the glands. So yung mga dots na nakikita nyo, those are glands. And those glands are particularly observed on a particular family or genus. So if you observe this kind of position, this belongs to a particular plant group or a species. So the artist will closely check the specimens that are being drawn to the exact location for the glands. So meron sa base, meron sa near the margin or in the middle of the leaf. So scientific illustration are very helpful for identifying plants with the use of mga spot characters na book. Okay, so also here, one of the book of late Leonard Elko, so it shows some of the medicinal plants from the Cordillera region. So here, the piper betel or ikmo or buyo. So the plants are being drawn by its habit and close up with scale of the size of the plant. So also you can learn to draw your or improve your botanical scientific illustration, and you can join the Margaret Fulton Award for Excellence in Scientific Botanical Illustration. So this illustration every year they invite artists to submit their scientific illustration. So here are some of the illustrations. So it shows the habit of the plant, the cross section, the close up of the flower, the shape of the seeds, and more on the details of a particular plant. So not necessarily mga new species ang sinasubmit dito. So you can create your own scientific botanical illustration and submit to Market Fulton Award. So last year, 2020, there were several submissions. Parang they haven't released yet the winners of this event last year, last 2020. But here are some uh, the illustrations that won first prize and second prize. So here, yung common Monstera deliciosa that are being fund by Plantito Plantita. So it is already described earlier, but it was recreated through this scientific illustration. So it shows the leaf, the structure of the inflorescence, the developing fruit. So as you can see here, the detailed illustration shows the exact plant itself. And there are mga minute characters with the male and female flowers, the cross-section of the fruits, the seeds, and the habit in the wild. And also here, the Cephalotus follicularis, it is an endemic carnivorous plant found in the southwestern part of Australia. So it shows the habit, the inflorescence, the close of the flower, the shape of the pitcher. So it is also like pitcher plant here in the Philippines, but it is much more smaller and found on the ground, unlike ng mga Nepenthes na tenden, but they are much more larger compared to this. So if you want to join this contest, you can start by making simple botanical illustrations with mga simple plants na hindi intricate yung kanilang structures like mga orchids or other plants that are more easily grown. And so you can develop so on or improve your skills with the botanical illustration. And also, I would like you to follow the National Museum page in the Facebook, so you can also have botanical drawings and zoological drawings that you can try to color or recreate your art. So we have color pH fauna by number and color pH flora by number. So I hope I shared the differentiation of botanical art from floral painting to botanical scientific illustration. And thank you and good morning to each and everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Calyada, for sharing those very beautiful botanical illustrations with us today. It's so nice to see the crossover of art and endemic flora. Thank you again so much, Sir Calyada. Okay, so before we proceed with the next segment, we at the Faura Project would like to show our appreciation to our speakers through these certificates of appreciation. So let me share my screen again. Just a moment. Okay. So the Faura Project, incorporated with Philippine Botanical Art Society and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Honey Libertine Acanzar-Labor for speaking on celebrating 500 years of local flora, and to Ms. Willa Famoso-Tacan for speaking on Philbass and advocacy for endemic flowers, to Dr. Mercedes G. Planta for speaking on flowers for women in the 16th and 17th century. And of course, to Mr. John Ray Calyado for speaking on botanical illustrations then and now, given this 10th day of May 2021, during the conference on celebrating 500 years of local flora, and for being part of the Faura Project's Flores de Mayo Festival 2021, signed by Dr. Honey Libertine Acanzar-Labor, the Executive Director of the Faura Project Incorporated, and the convener for the conference on celebrating 500 years of local flora. Also signed by Ms. Willa Famoso-Tacan, the President of the Filipino Botanical Art Society. So thank you so much again to our speakers for your very wonderful and very informational talks. Okay, so now we can proceed with the next segment of our program, which is the Q&A portion. So now the floor is open for any questions you may have for our speakers. So again, you can send your questions through the Zoom chat, or you can unmute and ask your question yourself. We only have 10 minutes for this segment, so let's try to make our questions concise, and we will try to fit as many questions as we can. So now we have one question. So for Dr. Planta, I personally love the gumamela. I actually just planted a new one last month. You have an idea if the practice relating to menstrual health is also observed by other countries? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I really have no idea if the 17th, 16th century Filipino women's use of gomamela for menstrual cramps is shared by others, probably in Southeast Asia. All I know is that in Malaysia, their appreciation of the gumamela is very high. In fact, but only because of its beauty. I don't know of its property as much as the early Filipinas had known of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Planta. And now for the next question. So for Mr. Callado, I had the chance to observe some of your artworks. I personally admire your attention to detail. Can you provide some tips for aspiring artists who want to improve their eye for detail? Thank you.
Okay, so we need to scale them. So kailangan natin we have rulers and scale them out sa paper. So kailangan minsan if you can also try to ako basically with the to the illustrating plans na kailangan detailed. So minsan magkaka-error ka. So adjust lang. So like drawings with pencil muna, and then later on try to slowly draw it close to the actual plan. So kailangan i-scale na lang, or those are some of my techniques na ginagamit. Siniscale ko yung plans from the photo to the illustration or on the drawing sheet. That's all. Thank you.
I think you're unmuted, Sha. Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Callado, and thank you, Ma'am Labor. Okay, so we have a question or a suggestion from Mr. Manolo Labor. So any plan from any of the group represented here to build a digital archive of these illustrations, an archive that will be open to all industries? So Mr. Callado and Ms. Famasa.
Oh yes, thank you so much for that awesome idea, Sir Manolo. Actually, Elijah already had a website dito po para sa ating online art exhibit. And I think it could be, nandun lang siya, ma'am, no? Ma'am Levy, hindi naman po yung matatanggal.
Yes,
so I think it would be a nice start po na we can digitize our illustrations. Tapos pa din na natin dagdagan na lang siguro, Ma'am Levy, no? If ever na mga saksibing Flores de Mayo festivals natin sa mga susunod na taon.
Yes, yes, great idea. I'm with you there, Bing. Yes. And perhaps the National Museum also definitely would have these illustrations in their collection. I would understand, Mr. Callado.
Pardon? What's the question?
That definitely you would also have in your collection images of this, I mean, in your archives, collection of these illustrations.
Sorry, nawala ako.
No, I was just telling everyone that a visit to the National Museum.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
So most of my our scientific illustration are being filed naman sa office, but they are not yet ready for public no. But Isai, one of our senior researchers sa National Museum, we have planned uh, uh, evolution of botanical evolution of botanical illustration that will be shown to the public online po. So magantay na lang po for some announcement in the National Museum.
Oh, great. Yes, we'll look forward to that. Yes, thank you for that info. And meanwhile, yes, as with Bing has mentioned, we will maintain our website and make it and make these illustrations accessible to the public. Yes, okay. So let's go to you, Charisse. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't think there are any more questions. Yes, there are no more questions. So I think now we can proceed to the next segment of our program. So thank you so much for actively participating in our Q&A segment. So for the next segment of our program, we have Mr. Elijah Del Rosario, a third-year Philippine art student and an active member of the Faura Project, to introduce to us the online exhibit on local flora that he has been working on for months now, along with the other artists that helped him with it. So take it away, Elijah.
I am proud to present you Celebrating 500 Years with Local Flora, an online exhibit. This is made possible through a collaboration with the Philippine Botanical Art Society. If you want to join me as I browse through the website, you may visit the gallery at fdm21.webnode.com, or you may simply scan the QR code flashed on your screens. Celebrating 500 years with local flora imitates both a natural history as well as a fine arts museum. We have categorized the details of the artworks in the same format used by the sample presented. Ideally, it will contain the flower's common and scientific name, the artwork's medium and dimensions, as well as the year of its completion. Each of the 12 participating artists has an individual page dedicated to showcasing their works. There are 43 beautiful artworks displayed in the exhibit. We hope you could learn more about our endemic flowers through this website. Thank you, stay safe, and may God bless us all.
Okay, thank you so much, Elijah, for the wonderful video, and of course to the artists who contributed their artworks for that wonderful website. So again, thank you so much. So before we proceed with the next segment, we at the Faura Project would like to show our appreciation to our artists through these certificates of appreciation. So let me again share my screen. So the Flora Project Incorporated with Philippine Botanical Art Society and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Jose Valerio, Carla Sahona, Cherry May Pestaño, Patrick Gozon, Enna Garcia, Miss Willa Famosa Tacan, Miss Isa Domingo, Mio Diaz, Larry Dianco, Becky Chung Santos, John Ray Caliado, and Gigi Manalastas. For actively participating in the Faura Project's Flores de Mayo Festival 2021 as an exhibit participant for the 3rd Flores de Mayo sa Calle Faura painting exhibit on native flowers, given the 10th day of May 2021 during the Faura Project's Flores de Mayo Festival 2021. Signed by Dr. Honey Libertine Acanzar-Labor, the Executive Director of the Faura Project Incorporated and the convener of the conference on celebrating 500 years of local flora. And also signed by Ms. Willa Famosa Tacan, the founder of the Philippine Botanical Artists Society. So thank you so much again to the artists for your artworks and for Elijah for the website and the video. So now we can open the floor for any questions that anyone might have for our artists or for Mr. Del Rosario. Also, we have one question. So the question goes to the artists, if there are any here. May I ask if you're all professional artists or maybe you have backgrounds in different careers? I am a student who's interested. I'm a student in the business field, and I'm interested to pursue a career in the arts, but I am scared to do so. Thank you. So that is a question from one of our audience. So is there an artist here from the exhibit who would like to answer that question?
Perhaps I can answer that. Actually, the set of artists, the 12 artists that participating in this exhibit are from different professions. We have actually a doctor. She's a medical doctor from Makati Medical Center, and she's an ENT doctor, Dr. Becky Chung Santos. And she just started painting years back because she's also a member of the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines, and she's a photographer. So whatever she photographs, she paints it using watercolor. We also have art educators, Carla Sahona. She's a very good botanical artist, and she teaches art among the preschoolers. Also, we have associate professor in the College of Architecture in UP Diliman. He is Professor Patrick Gozon. And actually, he's been painting a long time ago, even before Philippine Botanical Art Society was established. And he actually had his own book of Philippine orchids. And he's a gardener, and he is a very passionate artist who paints all native flora and orchids as well. And who else? Sir Jose Valerio, he is an artist of the Mabini area. So he's one of the Mabini artists, and he's very good at illustrations also. Nagpipaint din siya ng mga ibon. Teka lang, baka may makalimutan ako. And three of our participating artists are from the National Museum of Natural History. Si Larry Dianco, he's a museum staff, and he works under the Division of Zoology. We also have Isa Domingo. She is actually an artist illustrator of the Botany Division of the National Museum. Of course, John Ray Caliado, who is also a co-founder of the Philippine Botanical Art Society. Sino pa ba? Basta madami tayong mga kasama dito na hindi lang talaga artist. They started as parang mga like me. Hindi din ako talaga artist, although Philippine Arts ang aking kurso. Wala kaming background on painting, etc. We only have basic drawing under Sir Sid Hildawa, who passed away na sadly. And parang basic drawing lang yon. So I started painting when I turned 42. Tapos nagkaroon nga ng advocacy dito sa ating endemic flora and fauna. So yun ang ating mga kasama dito. Si Mio Diaz is from the corporate circle naman. And she's also starting to paint. Also, Anna Garcia. Gigi Manalastas is one of my fellow artists at portraiture naman. And he's really good. She's really good also in botanical art. So baka may nakalimutan ako, pero yun yung mga kasama natin ngayon sa dito. So those who are willing and those are excited or inspired to paint, anybody can paint po. Kasi ako talaga, wala naman din ako talagang background. And the Philippine Botanical Art Society and Philippine Fauna Art Society is open to everyone. To artists, hobbyists, teachers, students, housewives, lahat, children. So open po kami, pwede kayo maging member. And we're very, very excited to receive parang mga paintings from you, especially on Philippine endemic flora and fauna. Madami po kami exhibits throughout the year. So maraming salamat. I hope I answered your question, Clarice.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Bing Famo. So actually, there's another question po for you. So hi, Miss Bing. Any tips on initiating or starting an organization in the arts and cultural heritage fields?
Oh, wow. Nako, napaka-exciting. Actually, nung natinayo ko nga yung Philippine Botanical Art Society, parang I was not really confident since I haven't worked, no? After I graduated from the program, nag-asawa ako, and then I focused my attention talaga to the family. You know what? If you really have that love and respect dun sa ating cultural and natural heritage, kumuha ka ng mga grupo, same-minded people. Unahin mo muna na magtayo ng maliit muna na grupo. Tapos from there, katulad ng the Faura Project, si Dr. Levi Chancellor, siya ang nagsimula nito. And actually, it is the 10th year of the Faura Project. 10th year na ngayon. 10 years na itong in-establish ni Ma'am Levi. And nagsimula lang talaga yung Flores de Mayo in 2018. So every year, sineselebrate na natin siya. So if you really wanted to establish or organize an organization, dapat meron kang clear, nakatulong sa atin sa arts management, may clear ka na vision, mission, objective, and strategies. So doon ka mag-start, and then dapat clear talaga yung iyong goals, your vision, para mapatupad mo kung whatever na you wanted your organization to advocate or to push, no? So hopefully makaano kayo ng inyong organization, and most especially you ask also the discipline and the help of authorities over kung anong klaseng organization na inyong itatayo. Like me, I went to the National Museum because I know that the botanist from the National Museum will be able to help me and to legitimize the organization of PhilBAS. So, ayan, Chadias, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bing. Actually, we have one last question. So this question is for all the artists that participated in the exhibit. So the question is, art is being considered as a good way to cope with this pandemic. How do you see Flora artworks as a tool to improve community mental health? So any of the artists here today can answer this question.
I think I can volunteer Miss Carla Sahona. Carla.
Okay, for a while po. Wait, for a while. Can you repeat the question po again?
Okay, po, so the question is, art is being considered as a good way to cope with this pandemic. How do you see Flora artworks as a tool to improve community mental health? Thank you.
Okay, so when this pandemic started, I was able to actually focus more on practicing my art here in, particularly in botanical art. So how can this help us cope? Well, actually, so i-share ko na lang yung aking experience kasi I have a small garden kasi that I keep. And I try to make it a point that I collect as many flowering plants as I can. So in that case, not only the plants help me cope with the stresses of the pandemic, but because I observe them closely enough that I want to paint them, so I convert them into painting, and that actually helps me focus more and ano ba? Try to see the beauty na lang in despite of what's happening around us. So if you do plan to go into this kind of field, to those who are interested to participate or to try botanical art, so I suggest that you start with your own garden kasi because diba, plants can already help us cope a lot. And yeah, try the easy ones muna. And you will discover that in time na parang nare-relax ka na over this situation. So yes po, that's all that I can share. Thank you.
Thank you so
Cherise.
much. Yes, pa.
Sorry to interrupt you. I see here that Professor Patrick Dawson is also here with us.
Yes, pa.
So maybe we can hear something from Professor Patrick. Sir
Definitely.
Patrick. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Sir Pat. Ayan si Sir Pat. Is Sir Pat here po? Ay, ayan. Ayan, Sir Patrick. Hello po. Sir Patrick is, he is an architect po. And ang gaganda po talaga ng kanyang mga botanical illustrations. Anyway, ano siya? What do you think?
Sir Patrick? Maybe
wala
the top is connected po.
Yeah, I think. Do you need one artist pa to answer? We can ask also Isa Domingo from National Museum.
If they'd like to answer po, miss.
Sige, okay.
Or are there other artists po who'd like to contribute an answer? Okay po. Okay, so I think we can proceed to the next question. So, okay, Miss Isa, would you like to answer the question? I think you're muted po.
Hi, hello. So for the pandemic, I think art is kind of a therapy then. For us, it can keep your mind off things, especially when things are very uncertain right now. So I see it as a form of therapy. So it takes your mind off things, ganun. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you po. Okay, so now we can move on to our next question. So do we have a website where learners could access the repository of the Philippine flora, like exhibits, paintings, digital artworks? Thank you so much.
Can I answer that, Cherise?
Yes.
As of now, the Philippine Botanical Art Society only has its Facebook page, the Philippine Botanical Art Society, and group page, PhilBas. So as of now, since we don't have yet yung mechanism, wala pa kami nito, but this is a very good idea. Now we put up something like this kasi we have already exhibited more than 100 botanical artworks since it was established in 2019. So maganda nga yung idea ni Sir Manolo na siguro lahat ng mga artworks natin sa botanical ay ilagay doon because we always screen. We have strict guidelines dun sa mga sinasali namin. So it would be very beneficial to the Filipino artist community as well as dun sa ating mga kababayan na pagpasok nga nila dito, makikita nila yung mga native flora natin na hindi na natin nakikita because most of them are endangered and most of them are in high altitude places. Kaya it's really very nice na magkaroon nito. So hopefully, may makakatulong sa amin na mag-volunteer na gumawa nito. Hopefully, makagawa tayo ng something like this. Thank you so much, Cha.
Thank you, po. Thank you so much. So I think there are no more questions, so that ends our Q&A segment. Okay, so thank you so much to those who asked questions, and of course to Mr. Del Rosario and our artists for sharing your time with us today. And to our very lovely and very lively audience, thank you so much for sharing your morning with us. I hope everyone learned a thing or two from today's discussions because I'm sure I did. So our opening program might already be coming to an end, but we still have an exciting lineup of fun sessions and programs for all of you. So later at 1 to 2:30 p.m. we have an online arts workshop on painting a Rafflesia speciosa with Miss Ving Famosa herself. So if you're interested in joining this workshop, make sure that you sign up through our registration link to reserve a slot. So I will be sending the link here. Okay, so here's the link for the arts workshop later. Okay, there. So feel free to sign up so that you can reserve a slot. And of course, so to officially close our event, let's again hear from Dr. Labor, our conference convener, for the closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Cha. No? Yes, thank you all, no, for joining us in our opening program this morning. Of course, thank you, Chancellor Padilla and Dean Estacio, for your presence, and more so, for inspiring us to continue our advocacy for heritage. Thank you to the National Commission for Culture and the Arts for your constant support in our undertakings. Thank you to my fellow speakers and the artists who participated in this year's exhibit, particularly Miss Bing Famoso, who has gathered some of the best botanical artists of note. And last but definitely not the least, thank you to all members of the Faura Project who contributed to make this event a success. No? So you saw some of them earlier in the conduct of this morning's conference. But I would like to particularly thank Ms. Charisse Del Castillo for wonderfully hosting today's program, and Elijah Del Rosario for the magic he creates from computer apps. So I do hope to see everyone present here this morning in some of the other activities that we have prepared for you. So this afternoon, as Chuck said, we will be having an online painting workshop, and we will have 3 more workshops of different subjects, no, or references spread out, no, during the week. Just check out our Facebook page, no, the Faura Project Facebook page for the schedule. And we also have 2 more talks, this time on heritage streets, no? An ebook launch of a heritage book, also another launch for our Memories of Faura Project, Memories of Calle Faura Project, and a virtual Santa Cruzan, no? Which will close our week-long celebration. No? It will be accessible to everyone who wants to participate. So we have prepared all these for you to join us in celebrating heritage this month of May. So once again, thank you for your presence and participation. So magandang tanghali po sa ating lahat, at magkita-kita po tayo muli.